During a show in St. Louis, the volatile nature of Axl and some of Guns N' Roses fans would be brought sharply into focus.
Well, thanks to the lame-ass security, I'm going home. We're out of here.
Some guy was like bluntly taking pictures, you know, and just, he was a biker guy, and he was like really pushing it, you know, with the security guys and just kind of showing everybody, look what I can do, right? And so Axl just had it, and he jumped into the audience after the guy. And the band actually tried to go back out on stage. And, you know, the kids just started pulling up the chairs. They started carrying them down to the front and then throwing them up onto the stage. So, to me, you know, they just got into it. It just got way out of hand. The band left. They sent the band off in a van, and me and a few other people stayed back. But that thing, they tore apart the stage. I think they probably lost like half their gear in that riot. And like the cops too, I remember they were like shooting people with fire hoses on the stage, and then when it got too hectic they would leave. So, you know, that's one reason why I feel that stage got torn apart, because the cops didn't stay up there.
Axl was eventually arrested on charges stemming from the St. Louis riot, but his lawyers were quickly able to acquit him with only minor fines to pay. It took 6 months to mix the two albums, but finally, in September 1991, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 were released simultaneously.
Well, first of all, it's the only band in history that ever put out 2 albums simultaneously, 2 separate albums simultaneously. First time I'd ever seen a record be sold starting at midnight throughout the country. There were lines of people out in front of Tower Records. We watched it on the news. You know, we were part of a record that was on the news upon its release. And these records went gold simultaneously within something like 5 hours of the time that it was released. I mean, who sells 1 million records in 5 hours? Guns N' Roses. That's it.
Guns N' Roses are the only band I can think of following up one of the biggest albums of all time, one of the most talked about albums of all time, by saying to their record label, we want to put out a double album. No, actually, we want to put out 2 double albums. We want to put out, effectively, 4 albums at the same time. No one else would have done it. No one else would have got away with it. And Geffen must have looked back in astonishment. What Guns N' Roses wanted to do was to say, look, we're not going to go into the studio and record 14 songs and have 9 appear in an album and 5 dumped in the vault. We want everything we record put out.
Use Your Illusion also began to illustrate another side of Axl's songwriting.
I think as a ballad writer, Axl does have an awful lot to offer. He understands why ballads work. He understands the dynamics of a song. So does Slash. And that's the thing that people came to realize, I think, with the Use Your Illusion albums, that here was this rock and roll band who could also step back a little bit, allow a song to breathe, and give it the momentum and timbre that brings out the best in the lyrics.
tour to promote Use Your Illusion, Izzy Stradlin left Guns N' Roses, severing the alliance formed back in Jefferson High School.
I always thought that Izzy and Axl were like Lennon and McCartney. And when Izzy left the band, it was a big deal, you know, at least as far as I was concerned. I mean, but, you know, he didn't tour with us anyway. We took a jet, and he had his own tour bus. And so he would tow a trailer with his motorcycles and everything so he could go riding and have fun. He loves to travel. Izzy's a big map guy, too. And so, you know, like wherever we were, he would just meet up with us. We'd fly in, and he would drive in. So, but I started seeing a split then. I don't think Izzy ever wanted the band to get that big. Izzy's the type of guy that he would have been very happy just staying in the clubs.
When Izzy left the band, I felt it was the beginning of the end because I felt he was one of the cornerstones of that band. I mean, he did a lot of the writing with Axl. He was Axl's closest friend. He was the guy who got Axl out of Indiana and coming to Hollywood because Izzy was here first. He left first, and he hated Indiana. And so Axl came to join Izzy. And when he left, you know, you think of it. It's like, you know, Lennon leaving McCartney. It's like Paul Stanley leaving Gene Simmons. I mean, when you have a duo like that, a dynamic duo who forms a colossal band, when one of them leaves, a significant dynamic is going to be missing.
Izzy, to me, actually was the soul of Guns N' Roses. Axl and Slash were the public face and very much the pumping heart. Izzy was the soul. Izzy just had enough of a lot of the nonsense that went around. You've got to remember, this was a band who went from nothing street urchins, if you want to put it in that phrase, to being the most recognizable faces in the world. And I think Izzy got fed up, not with necessarily the fame, but the trappings and what happened to the band. Axl became more and more reclusive, more and more demanding, more and more insistent, more and more of a control freak. And I think Izzy just reached the point of saying, I don't need this, I don't want it. Goodbye.
Gilby Clarke was brought in to replace Stradlin on guitar, and Guns N' Roses continued on what would become a 28-month tour.
The band just started building and building and building. The shows were sold out. Yeah, I mean, that's one reason why we had the plane. You know, we could just fly in the place. So we could base in, like, you know, one area and then fly into the, you know, take helicopters or whatever. And, but yeah, it was, you know, mainly getting Axl on stage. You know, that was, he had a lot of assistants going on then. I mean, it became a very big group of people. It went from something that was like small and friends to, you know, chiropractors, massage therapists, assistants for assistants, managers' assistants. I mean, it just started growing and growing and growing. And it just got very, very big.
Axl was becoming more and more of a control freak, more and more paranoid. He had a bigger and bigger entourage around him who was there to fuel his paranoia and to suck up to his ego. And the worse it got with Axl, the more that the rest of the band pandered to it. I remember in Dallas, just before the Use Your Illusion albums came out, they were staying obviously at a very nice hotel. However, Axl was on a different floor to the rest of them. Not only that, but none of the band could actually go up and say, hey, Axl, should we hang out and have a drink? They'd have to actually go through his personal assistant and his bodyguard to get to talk to their own singer. I remember talking to Slash and saying, what's going on? Slash said, it's what Axl needs to deal with the situation. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. They were ceding more and more ground to Axl to the point where eventually Axl could threaten them, as he did. I'm not going to go on stage tonight unless you sign this piece of paper giving me control of Guns N' Roses, which they duly did, which was a daft move. So yes, Axl was becoming more and more of a recluse, more and more of a control freak, more and more distant from the rest of the band, but the rest of the band allowed that to happen, and everyone around Axl and the band allowed it to happen.